The last empty seat in Blue Caffeine Café belonged to no one and everyone on this rainy Tuesday afternoon. Jack Russell spotted it first, balancing his 5-year-old daughter Emma on one hip and a tattered laptop bag on the opposite shoulder, desperately scanning the packed establishment for somewhere anywhere to sit down. His weathered jeans were splattered with rain, his brown hair damp against his forehead, and the weight of another impossible day pressed down on his shoulders. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Emma whispered against his ear, her small arms wrapped around his neck. "I know, Princess. Just need to find us a spot." Jack's eyes locked on the one vacant chair at a small table already occupied by a woman in a tailored charcoal suit who seemed completely absorbed in whatever she was typing on her sleek laptop. He hesitated, shifted Emma's weight, and made his approach. "Excuse me," Jack said, his voice tentative. "Would you mind if we shared your table? Everywhere else is full and it's pouring outside." The woman looked up, her startled hazel eyes meeting his. Something in her gaze shifted surprise, then curiosity. "Of course," she said after a moment, gesturing to the empty chair. "Please sit. Thank you," Jack breathed, relief flooding through him as he settled Emma in the chair. "I'll grab another for myself." "No need." The woman flagged down a passing server. "Could we get another chair, please?" Her voice carried a quiet authority that made the frazzled server immediately nod and hustle away. "I'm Jack," he said, extending his hand. "And this is Emma." "Hi," Emma said, her small voice rising above the cafe's din as she offered a shy wave. The woman's professional demeanor softened instantly. "I'm Heather Hayes." She shook Jack's hand, her grip firm but warm. "It's nice to meet you both." What Jack Russell didn't know, as he carefully arranged his daughter's coloring book and crayons on the small shared table, was that Heather Hayes had just closed a $440 million acquisition deal before he'd approached her table. Or that the sleek, unmarked laptop she'd pushed aside to make room for Emma's coloring book contained plans for a technology that would revolutionize renewable energy storage. Or that this was the first genuine human interaction she'd had in 3 days that wasn't orchestrated by her executive assistant. "Chocolate milk, please," Emma told the server who had returned with Jack's chair. "And a cookie." "Can I have a cookie, Daddy?" Jack checked his wallet discreetly, mentally calculating the remaining balance on his debit card. "Just the milk today. Maybe we can bake cookies at home this weekend." Something in his tone, the careful management of disappointment, the practiced way he diverted his daughter's attention, caught Heather's notice. "I was just about to order a plate of those chocolate chip cookies myself," Heather said, closing her laptop. "But I could never eat them all." "Would you mind helping me, Emma?" Emma's eyes widened. "Really?" Jack started to protest. "That's very kind, but I insist," Heather said, her voice gentle but leaving no room for refusal. "Consider it payment for the pleasure of your company. I've been staring at spreadsheets all day." A conversation would be nice. The server jotted down Heather's order: a plate of cookies, chocolate milk for Emma, black coffee for Jack, who hadn't ordered but looked like he needed it, and an herbal tea for herself. "You really didn't have to do that," Jack said once the server departed. "I wanted to." Heather smiled, and for the first time that day, it reached her eyes. "So, what brings you two out in this weather?" Jack glanced down at his laptop bag. "Job hunting, actually. Emma's preschool lets out at noon on Tuesdays, and the library's computers were all taken. I have a few applications I need to submit today." "What kind of job are you looking for?" Heather asked, genuinely curious. "Engineering. I was at Westbrook Technologies for 7 years, but they downsized 3 months ago. Been picking up construction work since then, but..." He trailed off, glancing at Emma, who was happily arranging her crayons by color. "But it's not your field," Heather finished. "No, it's not, but it pays some bills while I look. Emma's mom passed away when she was 2, so it's just us." Something in Heather's expression changed, not pity, but a kind of recognition. "I'm sorry about your wife." "Thank you." Jack cleared his throat. It's been 3 years now. We're doing okay, aren't we, kiddo? Emma looked up from her coloring. Daddy makes the best pancakes in the whole world. With faces on them, Heather laughed, a genuine sound that made several nearby patrons glance over in surprise. Heather Hayes, CEO of Hayes Innovative Technologies, rarely laughed in public. Pancake artistry. That's a skill worth putting on your resume, she said, her eyes twinkling. Jack grinned, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. It's right there under special abilities, along with can fix any broken toy with duct tape. Their order arrived, and Emma's delight at the enormous chocolate chip cookie nearly knocked over her chocolate milk. Jack caught it just in time, his reflexes honed by years of solo parenting. Careful there, Em. Heather watched their easy interaction, the way Jack knew exactly how many napkins Emma would need, how he broke the cookie into manageable pieces without being asked. There was something captivating about his quiet competence, his gentle patience. So, Heather, Jack said, taking a grateful sip of coffee, what do you do when you're not rescuing desperate dads with cookies? The question caught her off guard. People usually knew who she was, or at least pretended to. The anonymity was refreshing. I run a company, she said simply. Energy technology? That sounds interesting. What kind of energy tech? She tilted her head, studying him. Storage solutions, battery technology primarily. Jack's eyes lit up. No kidding. I was working on conductive polymers for battery applications at Westbrook before the layoffs. We were making some real progress with extended charge cycles. It was Heather's turn to look surprised. You're familiar with the field. It was my specialty. I have a few patents, actually, though Westbrook owns them now. He shrugged, but there was no mistaking the passion in his voice. Their conversation flowed easily from there, diving into technical details that would have bored most people to tears, but had them both animated and engaged. Emma, content with her cookie and coloring, occasionally interjected with questions that Jack patiently answered, translating complex concepts into terms a 5-year-old could grasp. You explain that better than most of my technical team, Heather said, impressed by his ability to simplify without condescending. Jack laughed. When you have a curious 5-year-old, you learn to explain everything from how toilets work to why the sky is blue. Makes you really think about things you take for granted. An hour passed without either of them noticing. Emma had moved on from coloring to quietly playing a game on Jack's phone, her eyelids growing heavy. I should probably get her home for a nap, Jack said, noticing his daughter's drooping eyes. Thank you again for sharing your table and the cookies. It was my pleasure, truly. Heather hesitated, then reached for her purse. Actually, I'd like to continue our conversation about the conductive polymers you were working on. Would you be open to a more formal meeting? Jack blinked. I'm not sure I understand. Heather pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. Jack's eyes widened as he read it. You're Heather Hayes, as in Hayes Innovative Technologies. His voice dropped to a whisper. You're that Heather Hayes, she nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. I am, and I think your work might align well with a project we're developing. Would you be willing to come in and talk to my team? Jack stared at the card, then back at her. Yes, of course. Excellent. She stood, gathering her things. Call the number on the card tomorrow. My assistant will set everything up. She paused, looking at Emma, who was now leaning against her father, half asleep. Bring your resume. And Jack, make sure those pancake skills are listed. With that, she was gone, leaving Jack staring after her in disbelief, a sleeping child against his shoulder and a business card that might just change everything. The Hayes Innovative Technologies building gleamed like a beacon against the city skyline, all glass and steel and promise. Jack stood on the sidewalk, Emma's hand in his, both of them staring up at the towering structure. Is this where the nice cookie lady works? Emma asked, craning her neck. Yes, sweetheart, and we need to be on our very best behavior, okay? Jack adjusted his tie borrowed from his neighbor, along with the slightly too large suit that he'd tried to make presentable with careful ironing, and a belt cinched tight. Emma nodded solemnly, the gravity of the situation clear even to her 5-year-old sensibilities. "I'll be good, Daddy." The receptionist looked up as they entered, her polite smile faltering slightly at the sight of a child in the pristine lobby. "May I help you? I'm Jack Russell. I have an appointment with Miss Hayes at 10. Her eyebrows rose fractionally. "Regarding a position in the engineering department, I believe." The receptionist tapped at her computer, then made a call. After a brief conversation, she looked up with renewed professionalism. "Miss Hayes's assistant will be down shortly to escort you up." Jack nodded his thanks and led Emma to a sleek couch, quietly reviewing the rules they'd discussed that morning inside voice. No running, no touching things without permission. "Mr. Russell." A young man in a well-tailored suit approached them. "I'm Brian, Miss Hayes's assistant. If you'll follow me." They rode the elevator to the top floor in silence, Emma's eyes wide as they watched the numbers climb. When the doors opened, they stepped into a world of hushed efficiency, a space where decisions that affected millions were made daily. Brian led them past several glass-walled conference rooms to a large corner office where Heather stood talking with 2 men in suits. She looked up as they entered, and her professional expression warmed. "Jack, thank you for coming." She stepped forward to shake his hand, then smiled down at Emma. "And you brought your expert consultant." "Hello, Emma." "Hi, Cookie Lady," Emma said, then quickly amended, "I mean Miss Hayes." Heather laughed. "Cookie Lady is fine. Would you like to draw while we talk? I have some special paper and markers just for you." Emma's eyes lit up as Brian showed her to a small table in the corner of the office, complete with art supplies and a plate of cookies that looked suspiciously like the ones from the cafe. Once Emma was settled, Heather introduced Jack to the men, her head of engineering and the company's chief financial officer. What followed was the most intense, most exhilarating interview of Jack's career. They discussed his previous work, his patents, his ideas for future development. The technical questions were challenging but fair, allowing him to demonstrate both his knowledge and his passion for the field. Throughout it all, Heather observed more than she spoke, her keen eyes missing nothing, including the way Jack periodically checked on Emma, his attention never straying from her for too long despite the high-stakes conversation. After an hour, she dismissed the other executives with a nod. "You impressed them," she said once they were alone, save for Emma, who was still contentedly drawing. "They're tough but fair," Jack replied. "You've built an incredible team. I try to surround myself with the best." Heather leaned against her desk. "Which is why I'd like to offer you a position as a senior engineer on our emerging technologies team." Jack's breath caught. Thank you, that's generous." "It's not generosity, Jack. It's good business. Your work with conductive polymers is exactly what we need for our next generation of storage solutions." She named a salary that made him blink. Plus benefits, of course, full medical, dental, vision, 401k matching, and flexible hours. "Flexible hours?" "For Emma," Heather said simply. "Single parenting and corporate America don't always mix well. I'd rather adjust the schedule than lose a brilliant mind." Jack looked over at his daughter, then back at Heather. "Why are you doing this? Really?" Heather's professional facade slipped, just slightly. "Because 7 years ago, I was you. Different circumstances, but the same struggle trying to balance ambition with responsibility, passion with practicality." She straightened. "And because you're genuinely the right person for this job." "Thank you," Jack said, his voice thick. "I accept." "Excellent. Brian will handle the paperwork. You can start next Monday." She paused. "There's one more thing. We have a childcare center on the 3rd floor for employees. Emma would be welcome there when she's not in school." It was almost too much. Jack fought to maintain his composure, overwhelmed by the sudden shift in their fortunes. "That would be. Thank you. Daddy, look, I drew the Cookie Lady's building." Emma bounded over, holding up her artwork, a colorful rendition of the Hayes Tower with stick figures standing outside. "It's beautiful, Em." Jack knelt to examine her drawing, grateful for the moment to collect himself. "Is this me?" Heather asked, pointing to one of the taller stick figures with long brown hair. "Uh-huh, and that's me and Daddy. We're coming to visit you," Emma beamed. "I love it. May I keep it?" "I think it would look perfect right here." Heather took the drawing and carefully placed it on a wall that already held framed awards and recognitions. "Really? On your wall?" "Absolutely. It's the best artwork in the building." As they prepared to leave, Brian appeared with a folder of paperwork for Jack to review and sign. "One last thing," Heather said as they reached the elevator. "We're having a company picnic this Saturday at Riverside Park. You should both come. It would be a good chance to meet the team before you start." "We'd like that," Jack said, still somewhat dazed by how quickly their lives had changed. "Excellent. I'll see you there." Heather's smile lingered as the elevator doors closed. The Saturday picnic dawned clear and warm, a perfect early summer day. Jack and Emma arrived at the park to find dozens of Hayes employees and their families spread across the grassy area near the river. A banner with the company logo fluttered in the breeze, and the scent of grilling food filled the air. "Look, Daddy, there's games." Emma pointed excitedly to an area where children were playing organized activities under the supervision of several adults. "Do you want to go play?" Jack asked, scanning the crowd for familiar faces. "Can I?" "Of course. Let's go meet the people in charge first." They made their way to the games area, where Jack introduced himself to the coordinator's members of the HR team. He learned who warmly welcomed Emma to join the activities. "She'll be well looked after," a friendly woman assured him. "We do this every year. Go mingle, meet your new colleagues." With Emma happily engaged in a sack race, Jack wandered toward the main picnic area, feeling somewhat out of place despite the casual atmosphere. "Jack, you made it." Heather's voice reached him before he saw her. She approached from the direction of the grilling station, dressed in jeans and a simple blue blouse, a stark contrast to her usual corporate attire. With her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail and minimal makeup, she looked younger, more approachable. "Wouldn't have missed it," he replied, genuinely pleased to see her. "This is quite an event. We try to do it right. Have you eaten? The food's actually good. I refuse to serve those sad, dried-out burgers that seem to be standard at corporate functions." Jack laughed. "Not yet. I was just getting Emma settled with the games." "Perfect timing, then. Come on, I'll introduce you to some of your team while we get food." The next hour passed in a blur of names, faces, and conversations. Jack was impressed by how well Heather knew her employees, not just their professional roles, but personal details about their families and interests. It was clear the respect they had for her went beyond her position. "You're good with people," Jack observed as they found a spot at one of the picnic tables, plates loaded with grilled chicken, fresh salads, and roasted vegetables. "I try to be. A company is only as good as its people." She took a sip of lemonade. "Speaking of which, how's Emma doing?" "Still playing games?" Jack glanced toward the activity area. "Looks like it. She loves this kind of thing, being around other kids, organized chaos. She's a special kid." "She is," Jack agreed, his expression softening. "Sometimes I worry she misses out on things because it's just me." "From what I've seen, you're doing an amazing job with her." Heather's words were simple but sincere. Their conversation drifted from work to personal interests, discovering shared tastes in music and books, similar views on education and technology's role in society. There was an ease between them that belied their brief acquaintance, a natural rhythm to their interaction that neither could ignore. "Daddy, Daddy," Emma came racing over, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "I won a prize." She proudly displayed a small stuffed dolphin. "That's awesome, Em. What did you win it for?" "I jumped the farthest in the big jump contest for my age." She climbed onto the bench beside him, then noticed Heather. "Hi, Cookie Lady, look at my dolphin." "He's very handsome," Heather said seriously. "Have you named him yet?" Emma considered this important question. "I think Splash, because dolphins make big splashes. Perfect name." Heather nodded approvingly. Are you going to be Daddy's new boss? Emma asked, her directness making Jack nearly choke on his lemonade. Heather smiled. I suppose I am, technically. But your dad is going to be doing very important work that will help a lot of people, so really, we're a team. Emma seemed satisfied with this answer. Can Splash and me come see where Daddy works sometimes? Absolutely. I insist on it. As the afternoon progressed, Jack noticed something shifting between him and Heather, subtle glances that lingered, laughter that came more easily. A gradual dissolution of the employer-employee boundary. When Emma dragged them both to participate in a three-legged race, which they lost spectacularly, collapsing in a heap of laughter, the last vestiges of formality disappeared. The sun was beginning to set when the event wound down. Emma, tired from a day of play, leaned against Jack as they helped gather trash and fold up chairs. You don't have to do that, Heather said, watching Jack collect discarded napkins. I don't mind. It's been a great day. Least I can do is help clean up. She smiled, something wistful in her expression. Most people would be trying to slip away by now, not looking for more ways to pitch in. I'm not most people. No, she agreed softly. You're not. They worked side by side in companionable silence until everything was packed away. Emma had fallen asleep on a blanket nearby, Splash clutched tightly in her arms. Let me drive you home, Heather offered as Jack gently lifted his sleeping daughter. You've got your hands full. He hesitated, aware of crossing another line. That's very kind, but it's just a ride, Jack. Her voice was gentle. No strings, no expectations, he nodded, grateful for her understanding. Thank you. The drive to Jack's modest apartment was quiet, Emma sleeping peacefully in the back seat of Heather's luxury sedan. When they arrived, Heather insisted on helping carry Emma's things while Jack carried his daughter. This is us, he said softly as they reached his door. It's not much, but it's a home, Heather finished for him. That's what matters. Their eyes met in the dim hallway, a moment of connection that transcended their different worlds. I'll see you Monday, she said, breaking the silence. Get some rest, big week ahead. Heather, Jack called softly as she turned to leave. Thank you, not just for the job, but for today. For making us feel welcome. She smiled, a genuine warmth in her expression. Thank you for sharing your Saturday with me. It's been the best company picnic I've attended, and I've been to all of them. With that, she was gone, leaving Jack standing in his doorway, a sleeping child in his arms and a sense that his life had changed in ways he couldn't yet fully comprehend. The weeks that followed established new rhythms for both Jack and Heather. Jack threw himself into his work, quickly proving his value to the engineering team with innovative approaches to their current challenges. Emma thrived in the company's childcare center, making new friends and proudly telling everyone that her daddy was making batteries that will help the whole planet. Heather found herself inventing reasons to visit the engineering department, scheduling more progress meetings than strictly necessary, always positioning herself where she could observe Jack's contributions. His collaborative approach with the team, his ability to explain complex concepts clearly, and his unwavering enthusiasm impressed her on a professional level. But it was the other moments, seeing him greet Emma with unbridled joy when he picked her up from childcare, watching him patiently mentor younger engineers, catching his spontaneous smile when he solved a particularly challenging problem that affected her on a deeper level. For his part, Jack became increasingly aware of Heather's presence, the subtle scent of her perfume that lingered after she left a room, the way her eyes crinkled slightly at the corners when she was genuinely amused, how she unconsciously twisted her watch when she was deep in thought. Despite the inherent power imbalance of their professional relationship, he found himself drawn to the woman behind the CEO title. They maintained a careful professionalism during business hours, but their interactions were charged with an undercurrent of mutual awareness that neither could fully ignore. 6 weeks after Jack started at Hayes Technologies, Heather stopped by the engineering lab late one evening. Most of the team had already left, but Jack was still there, deeply focused on a simulation running on his computer. "Making progress?" she asked, causing him to look up in surprise. "Heather, I didn't hear you come in." He gestured to his screen. "Yes, actually. I think we've solved the thermal regulation issue with the new polymer matrix. Want to see?" She moved closer, leaning over his shoulder to examine the data. The proximity sent a wave of awareness through them both. "This is impressive," she said, her voice slightly lower than normal. "The energy density is higher than we projected, and the stability metrics look excellent. We still need to build a physical prototype to confirm, but the simulation results are promising." He turned slightly to face her, suddenly aware of how close they were. For a moment, neither spoke, the air between them heavy with unspoken possibilities. Heather straightened first. "You should go home, Jack. Emma will be wondering where you are. She's at my neighbor's tonight, monthly book club meeting. They let me swap childcare." He saved his work and stood. "But you're right, it's late. I should call it a day." They walked together to the elevator, the empty building creating an intimacy that the bustling daytime environment never allowed. "Have you had dinner?" Heather asked suddenly as the elevator doors closed. "No, not yet. Neither have I." "Would you like to grab something? There's a good Thai place a few blocks from here." The question hung between them, a simple dinner invitation laden with potential complications. "I'd like that," Jack said finally. "Very much." Dinner extended far beyond the meal itself, their conversation flowing from work to politics, family histories to future hopes. They found common ground in unexpected places. Both had grown up in small towns. Both had lost parents young. Both valued authenticity above almost all else. "How did you end up in technology?" Jack asked as they shared a dessert neither had planned to order. "Was it always the plan?" Heather shook her head. "Not at all. I wanted to be a veterinarian until college physics changed my perspective. I realized I could help build systems that might solve larger problems." She traced patterns on the tablecloth with her finger. "My father's illness was part of it too. The hospital's backup generators failed during a storm, and his life support system was compromised. He survived, but it got me thinking about more reliable energy storage solutions." "Is he?" "He passed away 2 years later, different causes." She offered a small smile. "But by then, I was already deep into energy research. What about you?" "Always engineering. Since I was 10 and took apart my grandmother's radio to see how it worked." Jack grinned. She wasn't thrilled, but my grandfather was impressed that I actually got it back together and functioning. As the restaurant began to empty around them, their personal connection deepened, the professional dynamic receding into the background. Walking back to their respective cars, a comfortable silence settled between them. The night air was cool, the street relatively quiet. "I've enjoyed this evening, Jack," Heather said as they reached her vehicle. "More than I expected to. So have I." He hesitated, aware of crossing a threshold. "I'd like to do it again, not as CEO and employee, but just as Heather and Jack." She looked at him for a long moment. "That complicates things. I know. There are company policies about relationships between, I know that too." He took a deep breath. "But I think this, whatever this is between us, might be worth navigating those complications, if you feel the same." The vulnerability in his expression touched something in Heather that had been dormant for longer than she cared to admit. "I do," she said softly. "Feel the same." When he leaned in to kiss her, it was gentle, questioning a beginning rather than a conclusion. Her response was equally measured, but unmistakably affirmative. They parted with promises to talk further, to proceed thoughtfully, aware of the professional and personal stakes involved. What followed was a careful courtship, private dinners away from corporate eyes. Weekend outings with Emma that looked like friendly gatherings to outsiders. Late-night phone conversations after Emma was asleep. They disclosed their relationship to HR, establishing professional boundaries while allowing their personal connection to flourish. Emma, with a child's intuition, recognized the change before either adult had fully acknowledged its depth. "Do you love the cookie lady, Daddy?" she asked one Sunday morning as they prepared pancakes together. Jack nearly dropped the mixing bowl. "What makes you ask that, Em?" "Because you smile special when you talk about her, and you talk about her a lot." She stirred the batter with careful concentration. "And she looks at you the way Princess Tiana looks at Prince Naveen in the movie." "Does she now?" Jack managed, impressed by his daughter's observation skills. "Would it be okay with you if I did love her?" Emma considered this with the seriousness the question deserved. "Yes. She's nice and smart, and she makes you happy, and she never talks to me like I'm a baby." "Those are all very good reasons," Jack agreed, touched by his daughter's assessment. "So do you love her?" Jack smoothed Emma's hair, knowing he couldn't lie to those trusting eyes. "I think I'm starting to, yes." Emma nodded, satisfied. "Good. I think she loves you too." 3 months into their relationship, Heather invited Jack and Emma to her home for the first time, a modernist masterpiece overlooking the city that reflected her success, but also her isolation. Watching Emma explore the expansive space, Jack realized how rarely Heather shared this private sanctuary with others. That evening, after Emma had fallen asleep in the guest room Heather had specially prepared for her, they sat on the balcony overlooking the city lights. "She's comfortable here," Heather observed, a note of wonder in her voice. "I was worried it might be too sterile, too adult. Emma adapts easily, always has." Jack took her hand. "She also has excellent judgment of character. She told me recently that she thinks you look at me the way Princess Tiana looks at Prince Naveen." Heather laughed softly. "I'm not familiar with the reference, but I'm guessing it's positive?" "Very." He squeezed her hand. "She also asked if I love you." The air between them stilled. "What did you tell her?" "The truth, that I'm falling in love with you." His gaze was steady, open. "That I never expected to feel this way again, especially not with someone I met by chance in a crowded cafe." Heather's breath caught. "Jack, you don't have to say anything. I know this has all happened quickly, and our situations are complicated. I love you too," she interrupted, her voice clear and certain. "I've been trying not to, worried about the company, about appearances, about a dozen rational concerns. But the truth is, I fell in love with you that first day, watching you with Emma, seeing your kindness and your brilliance and your complete lack of pretension. When they kissed this time, it was without reservation, a declaration rather than a question. Over the following months, their lives gradually intertwined more completely. Heather found herself attending Emma's school events, helping with homework, being included in bedtime stories. Jack became Heather's trusted sounding board, her partner in both personal and professional matters, the person who reminded her to rest when work consumed too much of her energy. 6 months to the day after they'd shared that table at Blue Caffeine Café, Jack took Heather back there for coffee. They sat at the same small table reserved this time, with the management's enthusiastic cooperation once they realized who wanted it. "Do you remember what you were working on that day?" Jack asked as they settled into their seats. "The Westbrook acquisition, ironically enough." "I was buying the company that had let you go." Heather shook her head at the coincidence. "I had no idea that decision would lead me to you. Life has strange patterns." Jack reached into his pocket. "Speaking of patterns, I've been thinking about our future, yours, mine, Emma's." Heather's eyes widened as he withdrew a small velvet box. "I'm not proposing, not yet," he said quickly. "I know we both need more time for that, but I wanted to give you this a promise that I'm committed to building a life with you, whatever form that takes." He opened the box to reveal a pendant, a beautifully crafted silver and gold design that, upon closer inspection, contained elements of a circuit board pattern. "It's beautiful," Heather breathed, touching it gently. "Look closer," he urged. "The pattern isn't random." She examined it more carefully, then gasped softly. "It's the polymer matrix we've been developing, the one that's going to change everything." "The one we built together," he confirmed. It seemed fitting. As he fastened the necklace around her neck, their eyes met with perfect understanding. 1 year, she said softly. Give me 1 year to get the new division established to make sure there are no questions about conflicts of interest. Then ask me properly. 1 year, he agreed, kissing her hand. Though Emma might not be that patient, she's already planning the flowers. Heather laughed, the sound drawing smiles from nearby patrons. Well, we can't disappoint Emma. 1 year later to the day, in that same cafe with Emma as their proud assistant, Jack did propose properly. Heather said yes before he'd finished asking, and Emma cheered so loudly that the entire cafe erupted in applause. They were married 6 months later, in a ceremony that balanced elegance with warmth, much like Heather herself. Emma, serving as flower girl and self-appointed wedding coordinator, declared it the best day ever, even better than the day we got Spark. Spark, the rescue dog they'd adopted together, barked his agreement from his position of honor near the altar. As they exchanged vows, Jack and Heather both reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had brought them together a rainy day, a crowded cafe, an act of simple kindness that had opened the door to profound love. Later, during the reception, as they swayed together for their first dance, Jack whispered in her ear, "Thank you for sharing your table that day." Heather smiled against his shoulder. "Best decision I ever made." And as Emma joined them on the dance floor, creating a circle of 3 that felt complete and perfect, they both silently acknowledged the truth that sometimes the greatest treasures are found in the most ordinary moments, and that love, like the best innovations, often comes when we least expect it but need it most.